Yeah, I've said it a few times. It's my favorite demographic. We've got a group of grandmas at the Boise gym, and
Yeah.
this isn't like a nice to have for them. This is like Rip says staving off death. That's part of it, but also part of it is
Mhm.
like, well, while I'm here, what am I going to be able to do? And when they see how profound the changes are and how drastically different and better their lives are after they become stronger, it becomes their job. These ladies
Yeah.
schedule their whole lives around coming to the gym, and they schedule their eating and their sleeping, and it's all about how to get stronger and keep attending sessions, because then when they're not in the gym, they can do the things that they want to do. Welcome Amanda Sheppard to the show. Amanda is a starting strength coach. She is the head coach at Starting Strength Beaverton. She worked under Jared Nesland in the collegiate strength and conditioning world before joining Starting Strength Gyms. And she just got nominated for Coach of the Year by her members. So, welcome, Coach of the Year.
Thank you for having me.
What, why did you win Coach of the Year? What
To be
exactly?
honest, I think I'm as shocked as everybody else. I mean, honestly, I haven't been in this world long, as far as starting strength specifically goes, but I mean, I'd like to think I do a good job with my clients. So, had some good things to say, and everybody that got the email was like, "Oh, I voted," or sent. I had a couple online clients send in some videos too, I think so.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I was as shocked as everybody else.
Well, congratulations. I know Jen
Thank you.
Smith over there, the owner, loves you. I've seen you in action. I know your members love you. Um, if you really care about your clients, your members, and you're really good at what you do, people tend to really appreciate it because of how much you end up helping them with what they're trying to accomplish, which in our case is getting stronger, and then all the side effects that come along with getting stronger and how that improves day to day life. Can you think of one of the nominations that came in that jumps out at you? Something one of your members said that was touching, or a story that one of your members um, has been through that's worth sharing on the podcast?
Honestly, one of the videos that it was actually, I think it was like 8 minutes long or so, was Linda White. She's an online client of mine, and she has been so cool to work with. I mean, her history, kind of in trying to get strong. If I remember correctly, I think she's 70, 71, and she's out of Minnesota, and she just had great things to say about just kind of the program itself. And then obviously our relationship has grown. She was doing a ton of stuff, actually working with a precision nutrition coach, um, and wanted to get stronger, and just gave the books to her precision nutrition coach, and actually I guess the coach was like, I don't know how to do this.
Good coach.
So,
Good coach.
yeah, actually, absolutely. So when I spoke with Linda, she was like, I knew that I had to go hire a coach that knew how to do it. And, when I talked with you, you had everything kind of laid out, and we had a good conversation initially, a good consult. She does a lot of stuff. She's very active. She likes to kayak. She's always working in her yard. So the intensity level of her everyday life is, she has to stay strong for it. So, she went through all of her history, kind of aches and pains, and what has really improved with her, and just dialing in her form, and keeping the bar heavy when it needs to be. And then, like I said, she goes on a ton of different kayaking events and trips, and so kind of figuring out ways to keep her healthy and safe for that stuff, but also push the intensity. She is very close to pulling. I think she pulled like 193 or so off the ground, so she's real close. She's got a 15-kilo bar. So she's pretty close to pulling 200 off the ground. And I know she's itching for it.
Wow.
So that really stuck out to me. She's great to work with.
What's her name?
Linda White.
Linda White.
Welcome to the Starting Strength Beaverton Gym satellite location in St. Paul, Minnesota. So glad to have you here. So after listening to a podcast on the Starting Strength Network, I called and talked to Rebecca Skinner and told her that what my goals were. My number one goal is I need to stay strong because I do not want to go back on osteoporosis medicine. I have osteoporosis. I want to be strong to enjoy my favorite activity, sea kayaking. I love going out on Lake Superior. It's a lot of fun, but these boats are heavy. Number 3, I want to be strong so that I don't become a burden to my adult children. So Rebecca gave me the names of 3 coaches. I did a lot of online research, and I felt pretty good about Amanda. And so made an appointment to speak with her, and we had an interview on April 26th. On April 27th, I had my first workout sitting right in front of me on True Coach. The one thing is important is Amanda respects the age, but doesn't let the age be a stopping point. She has no hesitation to telling me to put additional weight on the bar. Hiring Amanda as my starting strength coach has definitely been one of my best moves for 2022. I think I've come a long way in my understanding of the mechanics, and actually am now helping a friend and letting them into my gym every so often. Her qualifications and all of the qualifications of the starting strength coaches is amazing, and the process that they have to do to go through to be certified, I respect that. She is a wonderful communicator, and you can understand clearly what she's asking of you. If something's a little confusing, you write back, ask a question, and you get a better answer. I can honestly say that in the 5 months that I have been working with Amanda, the body fat's gone down, but more importantly, the percent of muscle skeletal mass has gone up. Who says you can't create more muscle as you age? Not in my book. I think Amanda should definitely be the starting strength coach for 2022. She's got my vote. Go, Amanda.
She sounds like absolutely. A really cool lady, 70 plus, pulling 200, kayaking, got her nutrition dialed in. She's got an online coach, lifting barbells by herself. Is she lifting at home or at a commercial gym?
She's in her garage. She calls it, oh gosh, I'm going to get this wrong. It's like LLAG. Like she always refers to it in her posts and in her, I'm back at LLAG, and so she's got a great setup and everything that we possibly need to get her strong. So
hell yeah,
it's awesome.
Well, good for her for knowing that that's the right solution for what she wants to do with life, and good for you for helping her out.
She's been cool.
How has it helped her? Has she shared that with you at all? Like what was her situation? What problem was she trying to solve?
Yeah, honestly, she just wants to stay on the water. So in her video, she had all of her kayaks off to the side on her garage wall. And she's so funny when she comes back from a trip, she'll tell me like, we got to lift them out of the water and we got to get the kayaks up over our heads and onto people's cars. And I'm always the one running over and helping people do that and get them up, tight and everything. So she talks about the transition between making that easy. She redid her like a walkway at her house all by herself, like a brick walkway. And, so she'll tell me, hey, I ended up doing all this yesterday. So we'll see how things go. And, but she always brings a ton of energy she's lifting by herself. So to pull on her own discipline and her own energy level, and then give me a bunch of notes back on how it went. Her son's getting married here soon. And, so she's got a little bit of a busy weekend, I think at the beginning of November. So she knows, hey, I can give you 2 really good weeks. And then I got some people in town. So I gotta figure some stuff out. And I want to try to get a lift in before they come from the airport. So she's about as dialed in as I've ever known a client to be, as far as she knows how she feels, she knows her schedule. I mean, that in and of itself is great when you have a client that's just, here's what I got coming up, here's what I have to be ready for. It's just helpful. It's helpful to a coach that we make sure we want to push people and we want to get them strong, but we know that, as much as I love this and this is my passion, it's just a part of these people's lives, and we want to get them strong enough to be able to, sustain what they're doing.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I've said it a few times. It's my favorite demographic. We've got a group of grandmas at the Boise gym, and
Yeah.
this isn't like a nice to have for them. This is like Rip says staving off death. That's part of it, but also part of it is like, well, while I'm here, what am I going to be able to do? And when they see how profound the changes are and how drastically different and better their lives are after they become stronger, it becomes their job. These ladies schedule their whole lives around coming to the gym, and they schedule their eating and their sleeping, and it's all about how to get stronger and keep attending sessions, because then when they're not in the gym, they can do the things that they want to do. So that's satisfying for me. Although you're more experienced than I am as a coach, because I've actually been hesitant about coaching kind of 70 plus people remotely, because I feel like I may not be able to see everything I need to see to prevent an issue from happening. And I'm just extra nervous and cautious with older trainees, just based on the fact that bones aren't as dense, ligaments aren't quite as elastic, that kind of thing, ligaments and tendons.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kudos to you.
Thank you.
How did she find you, by the way?
I think she just looked up through she got in touch with Rebecca Skinner. So she went through and looked up just a coach that would work, looked at the profiles and read through. I'm fortunate to have past clients that have left really good reviews, and she just, Rebecca reached out and said, hey, I got this. I have a woman that this is what she does. She loves doing this, that, and the other, so many activities. So kind of figuring out how to navigate those waters of keeping her strong. And like I said, she had a really good story. So listening to her talk, that first initial half hour, 45 minutes on the phone, just gathering all that information so that that pipeline works to get people matched up correctly.
Nice. And are you taking on more online clients at the moment, or are you full?
I am. Yeah, I'm still working towards. You still got a little bit more to my roster. I do, as far as like you said, with the experience of the older demographic, I actually have also a 75-year-old online who found this, and she's actually closer to me. She's down in Medford, or just past Medford, Oregon, a little further south. So she was actually just in the gym last week. She came up to at least get some in-person coaching, but she was great. Again, just getting how to start them slow and then get them to the right spot so that they're comfortable doing it on their own. Sure, you get a little nervous because they're pushing heavy weights, but taking it slow enough to make sure that they're comfortable. And absolutely taking as many as I can get to help them around the country.
There you have it, guys. Coach of the year. If you want to access her with online coaching, you've got she's got availability. beaverton.ssgyms.com. You can sign up to the gym and get coaching by Amanda. Jim Clare, we had him on the podcast.
Yeah.
First 600-pound deadlifter in the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
From my understanding, you were managing most of his coaching and programming. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yep. Hell yeah. Good for you. So you kind of know what you're doing here.
A little bit.
Yeah. Because you're young. Are you 30 yet?
31.
31.
Yeah.
31. But you've been doing this a long time. Can you break down for me, kind of go in reverse? So your head coach at Beaverton. Prior to that, you were a coach under Jared Nesland at Denver. And then prior to that, you were in the collegiate system. I'd love to hear about your experience in the college world.
Absolutely. Yeah. So right before I moved to Denver, I was the Olympic director of sports performance over at Northern Illinois University. And that was actually my my alma mater. And so I was there for 2 years. And prior to those 2 years is when I met Jared. Mm-hmm. So just to kind of backtrack from that, I was a graduate assistant at NIU. That's where I did my grad school work. I played softball and then went right into grad school from there. Worked for 2 years as a grad assistant. And then I went to the conference to get my certification for the collegiate setting. That's where I met Jared and did like a quick little 10-minute talk. And then actually met out at it's kind of a funny story, met out at a bar later, the collective of us, all the coaches. And the guy that I was working with at the time, he hands me a beer. He goes, "Go sit down next to Jared Neslin and talk with him." I'm like, this is weird. So I go over there and hand this beer to Jared. And I'm like, "Hey," I sat down. He's like, kind of looks at me like, "What the hell is this woman doing?" And I just sat there between him and two coaches, and I was like listening to him talk, and I'd insert a word or two every once in a while, and then yeah, that kind of prompted him to do a phone interview with him and Tom DeStasio, which is another SSE who was his first assistant over at Sacramento State.
Oh, that's the connection. Okay, I didn't realize DeStasio and Neslin worked together. I know they're buds. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, they were together for a while there, and I had a pretty good phone interview. I think they said to the guy I was working with that, "Did you coach her through this?" And, so it was, I said some good things. And so they brought me on for an on-campus, and things went really well. So they offered me the job when I got home, and I was actually in between that and the Army in New York. And it was weird because I think I wanted it that with the other side of things, the United States military, it was, I could have done the science portion of it, but Jared was ready to give me a job to be a coach and have all these teams. I'm like, that's what I want to do. As much as I enjoy the science aspect, I want to get hands-on. I want to be with athletes. So I worked for him for 2 years, and he's the one that threw the books at me. He goes, "Buy these, read them now." So I spent the summer reading the books and tried it on myself. And then once I got on campus, Tom took me through, I think reluctantly, it's like, "Oh God, I got to coach another person," through this. And he, showed me how to put the bar in the right spot and bend over. And so I just, I'm like, God, why have I not been doing this for so long? And did that for 2 years. And then after I was his assistant for a couple of years, I went back to Northern Illinois. And that's when I got the position as the Olympic director over there for a couple of years. So a little long-winded on it.
When you got the books, I'm guessing, you've been in athletics your whole life, so I imagine you'd already been lifting. Did you just do an LP at that point? And if so, what was that like?
Absolutely. So going into, I trained as an athlete in college, up until this would have been 2013. And then my senior year, I actually had knee surgery, and I had athletic trainers and PTs tell me that I would never squat more than, 40% of what I was doing at the time. And, in college, my numbers were, low 200s. It's nothing exciting. And, I was like, no way, man. Like, I like this stuff. I want this to be my job. And you're telling me I'm never going to be able to do it again. It was a little upsetting, but I kept training. I was high bar and a little bit more Olympic lifting focused. I had a good coach that would help train me 6 days a week. We were doing like Olympic lifts and strength training. It was actually the first time I did like Texas method. Now that I look back at it, it was like, oh, he had me on Texas method. That's weird. I didn't really put two and two together. But then when I got the books, I was like, okay, let me just take it back and do an actual LP. And I think I was doing things a little bit wrong as far as grip and eye position and from what I was reading in the book. So Tom straightened me out, and then I just worked the rest of the LP up and started trying to program for myself after that, and live and you learn through some of those things. But it was exciting. I think I got up to like 270 for a triple, if I remember correctly, after that. And I was like, oh, okay, something's working.
On your linear progression.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you went from being told, and I don't even know why medical professionals do this at this point. It's just like, how many stories do you have of like, oh, he had two years left to live. He'd never be able to walk again, blah, blah, blah. Doctors, why do you say shit like this? Just stop.
I would like to know the answer to that too.
Don't give people permission to not push themselves and to do less, But luckily you're not one of those people that would take that as permission. And so you found a way to get it done. And then, so are you saying that your linear progression ended with a 270-ish squat? Or is
I think I would say in the grand scheme of me working through that, I wouldn't say it was the end of when I was doing like actual LP AB.
Yeah.
But towards the end of like where I was probably starting to get into some intermediate type training, I squatted 270 for a triple.
Gotcha. Because that'd be annoying for a lot of guys, or end their LP at about the same men that end their LP at about the same number. So I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah. There's one thing that, that you can't replace, which is experience. You know, you're young. And I imagine you get some grief in the gym when guys come in expecting a dude with a 20-inch neck to sit there and teach them how to get big and strong. And then you've got a 31-year-old woman who's, looks young. And it's like, well, what do you know? And the answer is a lot, a hell of a lot, because of the experience. And this isn't just reading and theoretical stuff in school. This is hands-on athletes getting people moving correctly. And then the programming stuff, as evidenced by Jim Clare, is where it really makes a difference, because he's squatting mid 500, deadlifting 600. His numbers are fantastic. Do you deal with that in the gym at all? Do you have to overcome, your image versus what your capability is? I imagine that's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always been, because like in college, I worked with, the football team, and, especially when I was with Jared, he was like, no, you're going to assist football. And, so there's some good stories there, that I could always tell that, when I had to kind of stand up on the platform and puff the chest a little bit just to make it seem like I could hold my own and not allow them to question whether or not I knew what I was doing. So I think I learned in that setting just to kind of just be confident in what I was saying and not back down, and be able to back it up with a little bit. Maybe, okay, so I wasn't squatting 315 or 365, like these 12 players, but I was working hard and squatting some heavy weights and deadlifting. And, so if I wanted to lift when people could see that, especially in the collegiate setting. And then, now it's, being in this setting and Jim being, specifically a good example, coming into the gym, he looked like he lifted in the past, and, he knew some things and he wanted to be strong, but I'm sure, put me and Jared next to each other, to his mind, I'm sure he would have been like, oh, I wish I had Jared as my coach, but he was stuck in the 415 class, and Jared was coaching the mornings and the noon. And, but I was confident, like I said, just, hey, it's a matter of fact that this is what you're going to do. And if you listen, you'll be successful. If you don't, you're going to miss,
It's systematic. So, and I've done this before. So just listen to what I tell you and it will work.
Yeah. So it was, again, there is a good amount of stories, but, and it goes, I think it really goes both ways, because it's, you have the younger demographic, or the male, the men that walk in and they're just like, where's my strength coach, and then you get like the older clients, or the older females that are, deep, 4 kids deep. And, that's another one that's like, I don't have kids yet. And, this is some of those things. It's, oh, you'll realize when you get older, when you start having kids, and when they make comments like that, it's like, okay, like I get it. But at the same time, I still know, physiologically, I understand things. And maybe I'm not 50, 60, 70 years old, but I'm hoping I still know what I'm doing when I'm that age too.
Yeah. And you accumulated a bunch of experience starting at a young age. So even though you're still young, you're still experienced. Both are possible.
Right.
How many athletes do you think you've trained over the years in the collegiate system?
That's tough. I mean, I wasn't like, there's these coaches that, specifically Jared, he was in the game for 20 years, it's, so you accumulate different teams, different athletes, in the hundreds, as far as I was about 6.5 years, with smaller teams like basketball, softball. Then I get the golfs and the tennis or the track and field. But yeah, I was probably a good, approaching, the 1,000 mark or so, if I had to put a number on it. It's when when they're cycling through year after year, and, you're moving along from my grad school years to after, when I was Olympic, maybe not specifically my teams. Like I said, I worked with the football team, but I wasn't their head coach. I wasn't programming for them. And, so there's always changes you'd make when you think they would be your team. But yeah, I've accumulated a good chunk.
Did you use starting strength style programming primarily in the collegiate world, or what was your approach like in general?
Absolutely. After I read the books, and, Jared and Tom both, they were just like, listen, this is what we do. It's how we coach the lifts. And, there's nuance to it, because you're going to get the team coaches, that sport coaches specifically that are like, I need this, I need this, I need this. And I don't want you doing, certain movements with them. So you have to defend it. But for the most part, I had a good couple of coaches that were like, do what you want, do what you need to do. They just need to be ready to play. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And so I got away with it a little bit in the off season where I could run I would say it was a modified linear progression. I only had an hour with them. So I had to pair a lot. I had to, if I wanted to get eyes on the athletes, I had to pair some things that I normally wouldn't now, just to get some time to get around to all the athletes. Because very rarely was I working with an intern or anything. And even if I was working with an intern, they don't know what they're looking for. So,
have 20 people in a room or something.
Yeah, there was upwards of, I think like the softball team that I worked with was like 25. I was with rowers. There were close to 35 of them in the gym at a time. So I'm like constantly on my feet running around trying to see at least their last set of squats and progress them the way they needed to. And so, I guess
programming for all these people.
Absolutely.
Damn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a job. It can be stressful for a new coach to manage 7 people in a group training session at a starting strength gym with 90 minutes. So 35 in an hour is a whole nother situation.
Yeah. I think Jared and I really said that was the biggest thing coming into these gyms together, was that we were going to be able to handle the pressure a little bit, because it was almost like a vacation. Mm-hmm. Going from, 35 to 40 guys or whatever, down to 7-8 people. You're the one saying, who's ready? And you're pointing around like timers are going off and they're ready to get back underneath the bar. So that was a nice break. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, now you can just give that extra level of attention, lower quantity, Absolutely. Higher quality, right?
Absolutely.
Which is what these people are paying for. And 20-year-old kids that are freak athletes are pretty hard to screw up. You can just expose them to stress and then they'll grow. But 70-year-old grandmas in the gym need a little more of a cautious eye when it comes to making sure they're safe and making progress.
Exactly. Yeah.
What else did you notice about the differences between coaching in a collegiate setting versus coaching at a starting strength gym?
Obviously, man, I thought I was an okay coach coming into the gym at Denver, still learning, still trying to gain as much information and knowledge as I could. But just realizing, like you said, college athletes are, it's so much easier because you could just show them how to do something. Hey, do it like this. And they just repeat it. It just looks like the way it's supposed to look. And when you have people that come in here and they have zero awareness of their body and how to put themselves in certain positions, it really tests you as a coach to find different ways to do things and say things. Because no matter how many times you say it, you're like, oh my God, they're just not getting it.
Yeah, they might hear what you're saying, but they don't know how to translate that into physical movement.
Yeah. Or they think they're doing it. They're like, aren't I doing what you're saying?
Yeah, I am pointing my chest down. I am bending over.
Yeah. So that was a big difference. Like I said, I grew a lot in that first year at Denver, just pushing myself out of that comfort zone and really, really trying to, elaborate on some of the cues that I had and how to get things across to people. Mm-hmm. So I'm fortunate to be where I'm at because it happened, relatively quickly, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, going from being like a level 2 or a staff coach, in the evening times to being able to put myself in a position to be an SSE and then be a head coach. So,
you've come a long way very quickly. Congratulations.
Yeah. So that's definitely a big difference. And I think I'm grateful for it because I think it's made me a better coach in the long run.
I would imagine that trainees at a starting strength gym are probably easier to coach. Obviously not in the sense that, the movement, the ability to move is not quite as good as a collegiate athlete, but the desire, I'm guessing, is probably much greater because I've only coached a couple of student athletes. And I find it to be, it's usually not their main thing. They usually have other priorities. They usually don't, it's like their parents are paying for it. They'd rather be doing something else. They're tired from training. Their sport is their thing. Lifting weights is just kind of an annoyance. I'm assuming the level of buy-in is different for the members at the gym. Can you elaborate on that for me?
Absolutely. I think that's, when they're paying for it, you have somebody who's hiring a professional to show them how to do things correctly so that they can get stronger, not get hurt, and feel better. When it's in the collegiate setting, they're required. The coach says, hey, you got to be here at this time. We have a meeting, then we have practice, then you have to lift, and then you got to go to study tables. So they're required to be there. And, I want to really give credit to the athletes that I worked with that loved being in the weight room. I mean, they made my job fun at that point because they saw the benefit of it. So I enjoyed coaching, those athletes that wanted to be there. But at the end of the day, that wasn't what they were getting paid to do. They were getting a scholarship to play a sport. So if the coach had the authority, and if it was going to be, hey, they're cooked after practice, we're not coming to lift, that's what was going to happen. So it's, you realize where you are on the pecking order, and strength coaches in the collegiate setting are always at the bottom. And I think you could ask any strength coach, current or that has left the industry, I guarantee you they feel the same way. It's, you work your ass off to try to get to a point where they respect you. And, these football coaches that are getting paid millions of dollars or whatever, $100,000 to be the strength coach, of a big team. But it's like, all right, just don't hurt them at that point. So that's a huge difference, because the client wants to be there. They see the benefit. You have their best interest at heart. Not that you don't as a college strength coach. It's just here they're trusting you with their investment, and you got to make it there. Yeah, you got to make it worth it for them.
Yeah, my understanding of a collegiate strength in quotes job, strength coach's job is yell loudly, and then have people do a bunch of silly balance and agility related stuff, which I think is silly, just based on my own experience with it as an athlete, and based on my understanding of how the stress recovery adaptation process works. This is not a loaded question, I'm asking you in earnest. Is there any validity to the functional training stuff that you can see? Do you have any experience with the functional training stuff? Have you used it on any athletes? Have you compared your athletes to athletes that have done exclusively functional training? I would love just to hear your point of view of someone that's been in the thick of it versus my point of view, where I kind of have a general impression based on being on the outside.
Yeah, I worked with, a lot of teams that relied on, their athletic trainers, or hiring out professionals or people that did the functional movement screens, and just made it seem really, this person's knee valgus is very aggressive, and if we don't fix it, it's going to be, we're probably going to tear her ACL, and we really got to focus on that aspect, and she's got to get the balancing down, and she's got to be able to hop and land on one leg with no movement whatsoever. And it's like, that's not even sport, when you really think about it. You are moving, you're cutting, you're moving, you're putting your joints at different angles, and so a lot of times, like I said, when I first came out of undergrad and I was going into my grad school years, I had I forget what it was called now, some sort of Titleist thing where it had all these mobility stretches and a library of things that I had to look and write down a bunch of like a mobility drill sheet of things that the golfers that I worked with had to do in order to improve their swing. And I'm like, okay, so I went to town. Like, I'm like, all right, let's try this one. Let's try this one. And, so when people ask me now in the gym, they're like, what mobility things should I do? Or what stretching should I do? And I'm like, nothing. Just load the movements and, stretch when you need to. If it makes you feel good, sure, go do your stretches. But loaded movement patterns. Yeah. Loaded movement patterns. And, even if it's somebody that can't squat to depth right away, they're so weak that they can't get out of the hole, and you use a box to lower them down over time, you're still using that movement pattern and that load to make that movement, that range of motion permanent.
Yep.
So like I said, I'm like, you go home, you do all these movements and these stretches that might work acutely in that moment in time, but there's no permanent stressor to allow it to be something they feel comfortable and strong in that range of motion. So doing all of those things, I guess, to get back to your original question, doing all those things, I kind of saw, I'm like, you're trying to prevent things that are really going to happen on the court, whether you want it to or not, or on the field, whether you want it to or not. And you're setting them up to almost fear movement. And so why don't we just get them strong? Why don't we just put a barbell on their back and get them, generally strong? And then you go improve their skill. Mm-hmm. You go show them how to be an athlete. Mm-hmm. But I never won that battle. I actually had physical therapist tell me that there was an athlete who tore her ACL, and she asked me why I'm not doing single leg stuff on that side only. She should be doing single leg stuff on that side, specifically higher reps, lower weight. Like, she could still squat, but I need you to do like extra single leg stuff on that leg alone, 8 to 10 reps, so she can get comfortable again using that leg. And it felt like it was just an audience looking at me as she was telling me these things, and I'm like, disagreeing with her. Yeah, it was big. It was big. I got a lot of stories like that where you're just like, okay, you know, I'm not going to win this battle. Like I said, you remember my pecking order. So I shrugged my shoulders and okay.
So the PT thinks that the trainee with an ACL injury should balance on one leg, which is a less stable position for the joint than balancing on two legs.
Essentially, yeah. And do like, rear foot elevated split squats or split squats in general. And, just work that leg because that's the leg that was injured. This was also this, you get the same situation where they're running and they're jumping before they can even squat an empty barbell. It's like they're so quick we want to get them back on the field. We want to get them back on the court that it's like they can't even squat their body weight yet.
Can you steel man that argument for me? How would the PT defend that position? Do you know?
Well, I think to be honest with you, I think they're relying on the return to play. It's how quickly can we get them through this return to play protocol? And they have these little stages that are, when you look back at it, it's arbitrary where you're like, in 2 weeks removed from surgery, they should be here. 4 weeks, they should be here. 6 weeks, they should be here. And now if they're not there, what's wrong? Why isn't it happening? So they get them from being able to walk to being able to jump to being able to run in long distances. And that's what really, or they're doing a balance like Bosu ball, that type of stuff. If they can see how much wiggle they have in their knee when they're balancing on a Bosu ball. And there's just these check marks of, okay, that worked. I could do that. She's good to go. Put her back on the field, get her back on the court, get her back in the boat, whatever it was.
So just to be clear, it's complicated. There's a process and there's an expert with a checklist on a clipboard. Seems pretty like official to me,
Yeah. So if the and they had the letters after the name, the PT and the ATC and all those things that they're just like, oh, we're gonna, let's not listen to the person who's studied anatomy and the physiology of the body and all that stuff. Let's just they got those certifications.
Yeah, bizarre. So, what percentage of coaches in the college world do you think know how to make people stronger? Because I think part of the problem here is when it comes to people that are into functional training is that they don't actually know what strength is. They probably couldn't define it, and they probably don't know how to put someone through a program that actually makes them demonstrably, measurably stronger. If you had to guess based on the people you interacted with throughout your career in the college world, what percentage of these people know how to actually make people stronger, like you and Jared Neslin and Tom Pistasio?
Yeah, I mean, the percentage is definitely low. I mean, you're not going more than, the grand scheme of college athletics, and there might be some at lower level, like Division II, Division III, that are actually probably doing things more correct because the people that want to go to the gym at that point or want to go to the weight room at that point, they're not required to, so they show up, if they want to, and so they could probably train them a little better. So I guess, I don't know, maybe 2-3% of people that I've met where I'll tell you the way you could decide if they want to strength train, they are leaving the profession.
I see.
They know, they see their value, and that's great. Cause I've met a good chunk of guys and it's definitely more male. I don't even think I now know, I know more women strength coaches now being in starting strength gyms than I did as a strength coach in the collegiate setting. But they're seeing their worth and they're realizing where the industry is headed. So they're getting out. So if they were a former strength coach, they're in tactical, or they're in like more of a personal setting, now because they can hopefully bring intelligent programming decisions to other people.
Seems like the university has turned into the place that you go if you are comfortable being disconnected from reality, whether that's, making someone stronger or your understanding of the way society or economics work. It seems like an awfully abysmal place when it comes to actually learning practical skills that that are useful in the real world, which is disappointing. Did you ever have the chance to compare your athletes to athletes that were not going through a strength training program to determine injury rates, performance on the field, that kind of stuff?
Not to that extent. No, I tracked a lot of my own numbers, as far as, comparison between year to year. The most of the places that I stayed was it was just 2-year stints. So I was comparing the athletes from when I first got them through what would be considered, not a linear progression, or how I would train them, and at the same time, you're getting such a sporadic amount of training weeks with them, because they got all the breaks and you never know if they're doing anything over those breaks. So even if you wanted to, I don't think it could be great. There can't be great validity to it.
Yeah. It's not a clean experiment.
Yeah, it's not. But so a lot of times, like, one of the things that I've actually been trying to pull on to show, because I'm getting a lot of women interested, saying, I want to lift weights, but I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get, how do I prevent that? Or I don't want to gain weight. And, so I want to bring a lot of the experience from the athletes that I trained that were good training athletes, and show the changes in their body weight or lack thereof as they got stronger. I am hoping to, have enough to put together to kind of write something up about it, just to show people that these are the athletes that respond, that you could do anything. You do anything with them and they're going to respond, they're going to get stronger. So you would assume that maybe they would put on, a ton of weight, specifically women, the female athletes, that they would get, if I lift weights, I'm going to get huge, thing was true, that it would be apparent in very well, like, high responding type athletes at the division 1 level. And that just wasn't the case. Their body weight would stay steady, and sure, maybe they weren't high end nutritionally, but for the most part, but they were, they had the cafeteria and all that to pull on, and they were still getting stronger and not putting on a ton of body weight. So it's an interesting perspective.
In my world, it's weird to imagine that myth is still pervasive, but I know that it is. And as I was walking around the conference at the Wichita Falls Athletic Club weekend before last, I was looking at the women in attendance, thinking to myself, man, we need to just pull all these women aside and do some kind of a commercial, because it's like, they're all toned,
sure,
and fit looking. No one's bulky. Shelly's got some traps, but she's doing this shit all day with the snatch, right? So that makes sense. But
yeah.
Other than that, it's like, Ina Koppel, the gal that works for Luke over in Cincinnati, just nothing but slim, great looking women that are not bulky and are strong as hell. So one day we'll kill this myth. It'll just take us some time.
Oh man, I hope. It's been such an uphill battle. I try to put it out there, but I'm not petite by any means. So I think sometimes you get women that look at me, and I've caught it a couple of times where they go to say, well, I don't want to look like you. It's almost like they're going to say you. And it's like, oh, well, I could take that as a compliment.
Yeah,
I work hard to put on some muscle mass, but good luck, because I've been working for a real long time to kind of try to put on some muscle mass. So it's not gonna happen overnight.
It's not gonna happen overnight. Yeah. Can you think of some success stories? I'm curious about all types of sports, even golf and football, and I'd love to hear so even though there's no, comprehensive data to compare what you've done with your people versus what a functional training coach might have done, I'm just curious if you have any examples of individual success stories where you've made tremendous progress under the bar and or have helped them quite a bit in their sport.
Yeah, I like I said, I was fortunate to work with some really, really great athletes that wanted to be in the weight room. And a lot of times it was, they had to, you're listening to your athletic trainer or your PT, but then they still bought into what I was doing, what I was allowing to do. One that I could pull on, her name was Bailey. And she had a lot to go through her first a couple years before I got to her. And then she had shoulder surgery, biceps tendinosis surgery. I think that's where they take the tendon and they actually move it to the other side of the joint. So it doesn't do essentially what it was doing prior to the surgery. And she was a pitcher. And, again, you always have things that you don't know what's happening outside. You don't know what their lifestyle is like, how they're eating, how they're recovering. It's college, let's be honest, drinking, things like that. So, but it was a great experience because she really put her trust in me. Like I said, whether I knew what she was doing outside of the gym, when she was in the gym, she believed me, she trusted me, she allowed me to kind of take her through. I said, let's just start here and we're going to work you back. So after she had surgery, she came back in the gym, and I think I still have her programming that I started her with. I talked to her athletic trainer, and she was, the one athletic trainer that I worked with. She's like, hey, I see what you're doing. I know you want to get these girls strong. So, I've got to appease the coaches, but at the same time, she trusted me too, to give me a little bit of leeway. And she trusted my process to get her strong again and using her shoulder. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that she turned out to be the starting pitcher and, she had this great success for her. Now she's a pro. But personally, I think in her life, she has function in her shoulder. She's a mom now. So, she has function in her shoulder, and she could lift her kid. And, so I guess in the grand scheme of championship rings and, starting, if you look at her stats and all that, maybe that's not as great, but she got stronger. She was one of the strongest athletes on that team, that squat wise, deadlift wise, she was cleaning again. And then she was benching, she was pressing, she was doing all those things. So to see that happen and know that she had that trust in me, that was cool. I think that's really what pushed me to say I could really have an effect on these people. Like if they really wanted me to, or if they really trusted me, I could make a difference, in their strength and in their lives. And so that was a pretty cool story for me. Like I said, her career didn't end, with a championship ring, but she's a mom now, she can lift her kid. And I'd like to think I had a little something to do with that.
Hell yeah. Let's talk about the freaks. So you've got Jim Clare with the 600-pound deadlift at Denver. I imagine you had a few freaky people and Jim's not a freak. He's just consistent. He's definitely, further along on the athletic continuum than I am, just in terms of inborn capability. But there's nothing extraordinary about a 600-pound deadlift for a guy that's as dedicated as he is. But his level of dedication is exceptional. So do you have any examples of freaky athletes with tons of potential that committed themselves to the process that you guided them through, and you had tremendous results under the bar?
Well, man, yeah, actually, personally, I worked with a girl over at Sacramento State, and she was this little, like, how much is she? Probably 140 pounds. And she squatted 295. And I think that worked out to a 2 times body weight squat. And she was a little slapper outfielder. And, she just was into it. Like, she just wanted to be strong. But she always just tell me, like, oh, my booty gains. Like, that's what I'm looking for. So,
it helps.
So she was bought in, but again, I think she had the potential to be there. She worked hard when she was in the gym, and that definitely helped. But I worked with a good amount of that specific team. It was a softball team. They were bought in. They really enjoyed being in the weight room. And, so I had some athletes on there that had it, 1.5, 2 times body weight squat. And it was fun to watch and fun to coach. And then as far as like me, maybe not personally programming, but when I worked under Jared and the football team, we had some 600-pound squats and some really like strong bench pressers, and he deadlifted. Oh, God forbid you deadlift in the collegiate setting, but he deadlifted his athletes, and that's really what prompted me to do it, obviously.
Please don't tell me deadlift is frowned upon. Is that what you're alluding to here?
Oh, sometimes, absolutely. Yeah, well, it's gonna hurt your back, Ray. Don't you know that?
Shit.
Yeah. So.
Oh dear, I don't know how you lasted as long. I don't know how Jared lasted as long as he did.
You know what? I think it's just a testament to Jared. I mean, honestly, he put his head down, and I'm fortunate to know that guy. He'll enjoy me saying that. Not really, but but he just had a big influence on me. And for him to be able to do those things that he did with the different teams he worked with, and just trust that he was making a difference on his end. He really didn't, hey, this is what's going to happen with this team. When they're in the weight room, they're with me, and this is what we're going to do. And, I can't speak to maybe his earlier years, but as far as when he was at Sacramento State and where he finished his career in the collegiate setting, I think that he just knew that it was time to go because there was no longer a possibility to do that. They were going to say, if you're not going to change or do this, then you're not going to coach them. No, we need a guy that's going to scream and yell and break boards over their backs in the football games, in the beginning of the football game. And, that's what we need. We need the energy. And Jared's, if you ever spend time with Jared, he's
a chill guy.
Man, there was one time I saw that man mad and I was like, I don't ever want to piss that guy off.
Yeah, it's weird. There's no correlation between how your athletes perform and how loudly the coach yells.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem that way to me anyways. But good for Jared. I'm grateful to the guy. He took a big risk coming over to work with Jay Livesey at the Denver gym because they worked out a deal before any of our gyms were even open. And then Jared moved from California to Colorado. He wasn't cheap. He had a nice salary at the collegiate level. And so Jay had to take a big risk on making sure he could have something reasonably comparable pay-wise. And then it worked out really well. Jared's reputation helped bring people into the gym. The brand obviously brought a bunch of people into the gym. The thing grew. It's damn near full. And the members are happy as can be. And they're developing great coaches. I mean, obviously you're a testament to that. Now you're the head coach at Beaverton. Let's talk more about Beaverton. So how has your approach to managing apprentices been influenced by your experience in the collegiate system? Jen refers to you as a bit of a hard ass, which I think is fun. Tell me about what you expect from your apprentices and just kind of the way you approach the development process.
To be honest with you, they just need to know that it's not, I don't think maybe I take that as a bit of a compliment that I'm a hard ass. It's hard. It's
definitely a compliment.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
This is not an easy, it's fun and it could be fun and it could be rewarding. But you're on all the time and you got to make sure that you're doing things right. And you have to if you set your expectations high enough, then you have more of an opportunity to grow into that. But if you just set yourself, just do the bare minimum, you'll be okay. You're not setting yourself up to be successful with these gyms in particular, because there's so many opportunities coming down the pipe with, how many are opening and you want to, learn to be a head coach or just be a coach in general in the gym. It's time and effort. And, I think about programming and I think about different clients, even when I'm not in the gym, and this is a lot on life. Sure. It's, you're constantly, you're falling asleep and you're like, oh shit, I probably should have done that. And they're programming. I got to remember to make that adjustment in my head so that I can, make things feel good for that person.
You have to be obsessed. You have to give a shit.
Yeah.
You have to really care. Yeah.
Yeah, you really do. And you find what you should, I think, give a shit about. You realize like give and take a little bit so that you don't drive yourself nuts. But at the same time, but you're listening to what they want, understanding their goals and make sure that you're leading them correctly to that. So I guess from that standpoint, just my expectations for apprentices in general, I need to know if you're really invested in this, because if you're not, I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah. It's an investment, isn't it?
Yeah. Putting forth that effort to really show you the things that I've been fortunate enough to learn and try to expedite that process of you becoming a coach, because you could do it. There's coaches out there now that, some of the examples in the gyms that they've gone from being an apprentice to being a staff coach to being a head coach. And if you do that and you put the work in, you can be in that position. But if you're not going to put the work in, or if it's going to take you a little bit longer, just know that you're just making that process harder for yourself. So if I could set those expectations initially, I think it's helpful. Then you just know you weed out who's really worth it, I guess to say.
Yeah, that's the way to put it. Absolutely. What's your coaching staff look like at the moment?
So we actually have Adam Oliver from who will be at Starting Strength Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm. Adam. Yep.
So he's doing our evening classes now. So during the interim till Indianapolis is open, And we just got 2 new apprentices on staff. So I'm hoping to be able to, like I said, set those expectations and say, hey, there's opportunity here and it's coming quickly. So if you can put yourself in a position to understand what the model is and learn and grow, if you could show me that you could do this correctly, there's opportunity within this gym and within the system of like Jen and Derek themselves and the Northwest, then you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah. Jen and Derek are going to open a second gym. So plenty of room even in the Pacific Northwest. So are you full then? Are you taking on apprentices?
Yeah, we always want people to, I want to bring this to as many people as I can, personally, but like I said, I don't want to feel like if you want this to be a hobby. I think we've had a few run-ins where it was like, I think I want to do this, shrug of the shoulders, kind of, I think this is what I want to do. But then they realize like it actually is some hard work. And they're like, oh, maybe not. I thought this could just be a hobby. And it's like, no, this is my career. I take a lot of pride in it. And, I enjoy doing it. And, so I want people that are going to be just as invested, so if you want this to be a hobby, read the books and train some people out of your garage and enjoy it. But, if you want to make this a career, then you're ready to invest in that, short term, if you think about it, maybe as fast as if you got some experience, maybe as fast as 6 months, but if not, maybe 18 months to 2 years where you're really putting in the work, getting to learn all these things, reading the books multiple times and, working with clients for an extended period of time. So you learn how to program, then yeah, I think that's a good timeline to tell people and let them know that this is what it's going to take.
If someone's listening to this or watching this and they want to become a starting strength coach and work at a starting strength gym and get some training, some coaching, some mentorship from you, what's the best way to get in touch? Instagram, or how do you prefer to be contacted?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I actually, Bree was actually the one that wanted me to make my profile not private, which was weird for me. It was just like, I want to share your video. And so I'm not private, so you could message me and I'll answer. And, or you can reach out. I do have my Starting Strength Gym's website, email address. It comes to my phone, so I'm answering that at all times. But I don't do Twitter or anything. So Instagram or my email for sure.
Cool. And you're A Sheppard. How many P's? 1 or 2?
Yeah, it's 2 P's and then ARD.
A Sheppard, 2 P's ARD at ssgyms.com.
Yes, sir.
Cool. And then last question. How do we get more of you ex-collegiate folks? So if you share this with your peers that are stuck in the collegiate system, they want to get out and they want to go to a place where the trainees want to be there and where the programming is sensible and nothing else, and the results come along with that. What do we do? What's your advice? Because we have you, Jared Nestland, Jen Full. Is it Levat or Lovett? Darren Levat.
Levat. Yeah, Levat. Yeah. Yeah.
So
you just got to know Jared Nestland.
Yeah, just know Jared. Okay. Yeah.
But no, I think that's funny. Like Jen Full, she took my position at Sacramento State before I moved back to NIU, and then she took my position over at Denver. So I think we just, getting to know the system and understanding like this is what we want to do. I think honestly, you got it right. I think we're trying to figure out how to get into maybe some of the seminars, or not the seminars, but the conferences there. Just make a booth and go sit there and say, hey, this is an option for you. We do it under the guise of like, hey, look at our fancy plates, but we also want you to become and be a coach over in one of our gyms. And if you really want to make people strong in a meaningful way, I think it's something to look into, honestly, getting to those conferences. They happen all the time, but if we can get our name out there and show people that, here you could get strong and you could be a meaningful coach and actually not have somebody breathing down your neck to do things incorrectly. You might want to consider being in one of the gyms.
Hell yeah. That's a good spot to leave it off on, Amanda. Thank you for everything you've done. I mean, I know that you've moved states twice to work at these gyms. I know you've made a big sacrifice. I know you've shown your commitment. You're clearly all in, and I think that the system has paid you back for your level of commitment and passion. And the members certainly appreciate it, as evidenced by the fact that you were just nominated as Coach of the Year. So congratulations again, and thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you, Ray. Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk soon. Thanks.